Hi newbies, I'm Natasha Pittman, founder of Newbie 101, and I'm here today to talk to you about how to make a really good lesson plan. Now there are probably thousands of templates on lesson planning out there. The lesson plan that I'm going to take you through today is based on my experience in the classroom. I have taught in traditional classrooms for about 6 years, including both public and charter classrooms. And in addition to that, I have another 10 years of experience in Christian learning settings. So based on all of that, the components that I am going to take you through are based on that experience in what really makes up a really good and effective lesson plan. Let's go. All right, so here is our wonderful lesson planning template. And again, this is available for free by simply going to our website, newbie101.org, and going to freebies. All right, so the first thing we want to do is you of course want to indicate what subject matter your lesson plan is for, because believe me, by the end of the year you will have a ton of these for every subject for every week of the year. Now of course at this point a lot of people will indicate a lesson title. I always did. Some don't like to do this. It just helps for me to kind of tie it all together. Then of course you want to talk about your standard. Now that could be Common Core or it could be particular to the state that you are in. I taught in the state of Georgia, and so I had Georgia Performance Standards or Georgia Standards of Excellence. So just use whatever applies to your state in terms of standards. But be sure you list the specific code, because you'll want to be able to put that into your roll book by the specific code that it goes by. And it helps to have just kind of a brief description of what that particular standard's about. All right, so the next thing you want to go into is your objective. Now, I broke this out into long-term and short-term, and it's kind of like thinking about it in terms of a trip. Your long-term objective is kind of where you're going in that subject, whether it's your goal for by the end of the month, what you want the students to be able to do by the end of the semester, or it may even be by the end of the year. And then your short-term objective is, how are you going to get to that big goal that you have for the month or semester or for the year? And it's specifically, what is it that you want them to be able to do by the end of that day's lesson? So it needs to be specific to what you want them to be able to do. Not just we're going to cover chapter 1, paragraph 2, but whether it's you want them to be able to add, subtract, summarize, explain, whatever it is specifically that day that you want them to be able to accomplish. And again, it should always tie into a longer goal that you have set for that particular subject, whether it's for them to be able to read at a certain level, to be able to compute multi-digits in terms of adding, subtracting, or what have you. All right, and then the next thing I always like to do is just give one sentence of why this lesson is relevant for the kids. Think about it. If someone just stood in front of you and started talking, you would not be paying attention. So you always want to kind of just give them a quick, one sentence, whether it's tying into helping them with their standardized test scores by the end of the year, whether it's for little ones, and this particular lesson is going to help them be able to read. If it's older children, if this particular lesson is going to help them with their fluency, whatever the purpose is of the lesson as far as how it helps with their goals, just tie it in for them so they don't have to make that leap, and they'll know right away why this lesson is so important. All right, the next area that you want to have in your lesson plan is specifically how are you going to accomplish all of these particular goals that you've set? How are you going to teach them what it is that you have to teach them? So your method involves 4 key components, and here they are. When it comes to your teaching method, the first area that I want to address is engagement. What do I mean by engagement? The first thing is you want your kids to be engaged with whatever lesson it is that you're teaching. And so this is your way of getting them excited about whatever it is that you're teaching, introducing the topic, and getting them ready to open their minds to learn. The second area that you want to address is exploration. Now, when I say exploration, I mean building on the kids' knowledge, engaging any prior knowledge, helping the children to look at key terms, symbols, processes that are related to what it is that you're teaching, and just helping them to be able to use hands-on concepts. That's very important with this particular one. Hands-on opportunities to explore the subject matter component that you're teaching that particular day. The next component, of course, is explanation. What do I mean by that? I mean, this is where the students now are able to, or should be able to, explain key terms that you guys have covered or discussed. They should be able to discuss their observations, whether that's verbally or in writing. They should be able to solidify their learning and kind of summarize what are the key things that they found, particularly during that exploration phase. And then the last phase that's important is for your higher learners, extension, or if you have learners that need repetition, your slower learners, maybe they might have extra help at that particular point where they're getting repetition of the concepts, explanation of things in a little more detail if they didn't get it the first time or second or even the third time. And of course, for your higher learners, this may be an opportunity for them to apply those concepts in a higher way in terms of their level of understanding. So as you do these four things, engagement, exploration, explanation, and either extension or extra help or both, if you've got kids at both ends of the spectrum in terms of in your classroom, that kind of summarizes what I mean by teach them. That's your going through the process of executing your lesson plan. And then the last part of the lesson, which is just as important, is assessment, or some people may call it evaluation. And at that point, you're looking at, did the kids really understand the key concepts and terms that you were trying to go over? Can they apply the terms effectively? Did they really get what it was that you were trying to present in terms of that short-term goal that you had in mind for the day? Always remember that your assessments do not have to be just paper and pen. They can be projects. They can be writing samples. They can be, for younger kids particularly, observation or verbal explanation. So there are lots of ways to assess if your students got what it was you wanted to teach that day. And then the last element that should be part of a good lesson plan is tracking. And what I mean by tracking is you should have a way of keeping track of how your students are doing on the short-term goals that you have, meaning for each day, so that when you get to that long-term goal, you know how the kids are doing in meeting that goal, whether they're on track to meet it, whether you need to add some extra time for them to meet it. For example, if most of your kids, when you assess that standard that you taught that particular day, if only half of the kids in there got it, you are not on track to reach any kind of long-term goal of mastery at, say, 85% or higher. And so you want to always be aware of how kids are doing on an interim basis, so you'll know how you're falling into that long-term tracking, which you want to do as a successful teacher.
So what do you do when the video's over but you still need more information? That's easy. Introducing Newbie, a resource for new and developing teachers. This is the book that I wish that I had during my first few years in the classroom, and it's jam-packed with all of the information that people won't tell you but that you need to know. Imagine information in one place on how to develop effective lesson plans, complete with lesson planning templates, samples, and examples that you can use right away. But not only that, Newbie also has information on specific behavior management strategies that you can put into place right away. And it has lots of other helpful information, including information you won't find anywhere else, like how to develop an ideal class culture, or information on organization and on time management, something that is really key during your first few years on the job. But supplies are limited, so take advantage of this opportunity and order now. Your kids will sure be glad that you did.